Welcome to tonight's journey through one of the most mysterious and isolated nations on Earth. As you settle in and prepare for rest, let your mind wander through the fascinating landscapes, history, and curious details of North Korea, officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Allow these facts to carry you gently into peaceful slumber. North Korea occupies the northern portion of the Korean peninsula in East Asia, covering approximately 120,540 square kilometers, which accounts for about 55% of the peninsula's total land area. The country shares borders with China along the Yalu River, Russia along the Tumen River in the extreme northeast, and South Korea to the south. To the west lies the Yellow Sea and Korea Bay, while the East Sea, also known as the Sea of Japan, stretches along its eastern coast. The Korean peninsula has been inhabited for an extraordinarily long time, with archaeological evidence suggesting human presence for at least 400,000 years and possibly as many as 700,000 years. The word Korea itself derives from Goryeo, the name of a dynasty that unified the peninsula during the 10th century. Early European visitors to Korea remarked that the country resembled a sea in a heavy gale because of the many successive mountain ranges that crisscross the landscape. Mountains dominate the North Korean terrain, with approximately 80% of the country's land area composed of mountains and uplands separated by deep, narrow valleys. All of the Korean peninsula's mountains, with elevations exceeding 2,000 meters, are located within North Korea's borders. The highest point is Mount Pyeongdu, a dormant volcano on the border with China, rising to 2,744 meters above sea level. This sacred mountain features a stunning crater lake at its summit and holds deep spiritual significance in Korean culture. Mount Pyeongdu, whose name translates to White Head Mountain in Korean, sits atop a basalt lava plateau with elevations between 1,400 and 2,000 meters. The mountain has been rumbling in recent years, prompting international scientific efforts to study its volcanic activity. According to North Korean ideology, Mount Pyeongdu is considered the sacred mountain of revolution and features prominently in state propaganda as the supposed birthplace of Kim Jong-il. The Kima Highlands in the northeast form the topographic roof of the entire Korean peninsula, with an average elevation of about 1,000 meters above sea level. This heavily forested basaltic tableland is sometimes called the roof of Korea. The Nangnam Mountains run from north to south through the middle of the country, creating a natural divide between the eastern and western slopes of the peninsula. Mount Kumgang, meaning Diamond Mountain, rises to approximately 1,638 meters in the Taebaek Range and is renowned throughout Korea for its exceptional scenic beauty. The mountain features dramatic granite peaks, pristine waterfalls, and ancient Buddhist temples, making it one of the most celebrated natural landmarks in Korean history and literature. The longest river in North Korea is the Yalu, known in Korean as the Amnok. It originates on the southern slope of Mount Pyeongdu and flows southwestward for approximately 800 kilometers before emptying into Korea Bay. The Tumen River also begins at Mount Pyeongdu, but runs northeastward for about 520 kilometers to the East Sea. Most of North Korea's significant rivers drain westward into the Yellow Sea, including the Taedong River, which flows through the capital city of Pyongyang. North Korea experiences a generally cool continental climate with distinct seasons. Winters are cold and harsh, particularly in the northern mountainous regions, with mean temperatures ranging between -7 degrees Celsius in the south to -23 degrees Celsius in the north. Summers are warm and humid from June to September due to monsoon winds that bring moist air from the Pacific Ocean. On average, approximately 60% of all precipitation falls between June and September. The plains of North Korea, though comprising only about 20% of the total land area, hold great importance for the nation's economy as they contain most of the farmland and urban areas. The most extensive plains are the Pyongyang and Karyong plains, each covering approximately 500 square kilometers. Because the mountains on the east coast drop abruptly to the sea, the plains along the eastern coast are considerably smaller than those in the west. The demilitarized zone, commonly known as the DMZ, separates North Korea from South Korea. This 4-kilometer wide, 240-kilometer-long buffer zone has been described as the most heavily fortified border on Earth and the biggest military face-off on the planet. Established by the 1953 armistice that ended fighting in the Korean War, the DMZ roughly follows the 38th parallel and has inadvertently become a de facto nature preserve, as the lack of human presence has allowed the land to revert to wilderness. North Korea's capital and largest city is Pyongyang, home to approximately 3 million people. The city sits along the Taedong River and has been meticulously designed as a showcase for the regime's power and ideology. Only citizens considered loyal, trustworthy, and healthy are permitted to live in Pyongyang, making residence in the capital a significant privilege in North Korean society. The history of the Kim dynasty began when Kim Il-sung came to power in 1948 after the end of Japanese colonial rule and the division of the Korean peninsula. Born in 1912 near Pyongyang to Methodist parents, Kim Il-sung gained fame in the 1930s leading guerrilla resistance against Japanese occupation forces. He spent time in the Soviet Union during World War II, serving in the Red Army, before the Soviets installed him as leader of the Soviet-occupied Northern Territories in 1945. Kim Il-sung is often called the Eternal President of North Korea, a title bestowed upon him after his death in 1994. His son Kim Jong-il succeeded him and ruled until his own death in 2011, when power passed to Kim Jong-un, the current supreme leader. This three-generation hereditary succession makes the Kim family one of the few dynasties to rule a nominally communist state, earning it the description of the world's first communist dynasty. The Korean War began on June 25, 1950, when Kim Il-sung, backed by the Soviet Union and China, ordered North Korean forces to invade South Korea in an attempt to reunify the peninsula under communist rule. The conflict drew in United Nations forces led by the United States and eventually Chinese troops who prevented the collapse of North Korea. After 3 years of devastating warfare that killed millions of people and reduced much of the peninsula to rubble, the war ended in a stalemate in 1953 with an armistice agreement but no formal peace treaty. During the Korean War, American bombing campaigns reduced Pyongyang and other North Korean cities to rubble. Some historians estimate that the United States dropped more napalm on urban centers in Korea than in Vietnam. The war reduced North Korea's population by an estimated 10% and destroyed most of the country's infrastructure. The reconstruction effort that followed would shape North Korean society and architecture for decades to come. North Korea's official state ideology is called Juche, which translates to self-reliance. This philosophy was developed by Kim Il-sung and emphasizes national independence, autonomy in political affairs, and economic self-sufficiency. Juche has been described as a blend of communist doctrine, state terror, xenophobia, and hypernationalism that gives North Korea its unique character among nations. The country operates on its own calendar system called the Juche calendar, which was adopted in 1997. Rather than counting years from the birth of Christ, the Juche calendar begins with the year of Kim Il-sung's birth in 1912, designated as Juche 1. Under this system, the year 2024 would be Juche 113. North Koreans learn this calendar system from childhood as part of their education in revolutionary history. North Korea claims a literacy rate of 100% for both men and women, though this figure is self-reported and difficult to verify independently. Education is free and compulsory for 12 years, including 1 year of kindergarten, 5 years of primary school, 3 years of lower secondary school, and 3 years of higher secondary school. However, the content of education is heavily focused on political indoctrination and loyalty to the Kim family rather than critical thinking or exposure to outside ideas. From the earliest years of schooling, North Korean children are taught to worship the Kim family as godlike figures. By the age of 5, kindergartners devote 2 hours each week to learning about their leaders, and by secondary school, students spend 6 classes per week studying the Kim family's history. Textbooks contain fantastical stories about the Kim's supposed supernatural abilities, such as Kim Il-sung making grenades from pine cones, bullets, and sand, or using teleportation to defeat Japanese forces. Every classroom in North Korea must display portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, and students learn to clean these portraits with special reverence. The first words children learn to read and write are often the names of the leaders. A significant portion of the curriculum across all subjects, from literature to science, is devoted to praising the Kim family and instilling hostility toward perceived enemies, particularly the United States, Japan, and South Korea. Math problems in North Korean textbooks often incorporate violent anti-American themes. One example reads, "During the Fatherland Liberation War, the brave uncles of the Korean People's Army killed 374 American imperialist bastards in one battle. The number of prisoners taken was 133 more than the number killed. How many bastards were taken prisoner?" This integration of propaganda into academic subjects begins in elementary school and continues throughout a student's education. North Korea operates a rigid social classification system called songbun that determines nearly every aspect of a citizen's life, including where they can live, their educational opportunities, career prospects, access to food, and even whom they may marry. The system divides the entire population into three main categories based on perceived loyalty to the regime: core, which comprises about 28% of the population, wavering, about 45%, and hostile, about 27%. A person's songbun is largely determined by their family's background, particularly the activities and social status of their ancestors going back to the time of Korea's liberation in 1945 and the Korean War. Having relatives who collaborated with Japanese colonial forces, owned property, practiced religion, or fled to South Korea can condemn entire family lines to the hostile category. This system of inherited status has been compared to political apartheid and effectively creates a caste system in what officially claims to be a classless communist society. The songbun system is enforced through regular loyalty surveys and background checks conducted by state security agencies. Citizens in the core category enjoy better housing in cities like Pyongyang, access to higher education, membership in the ruling Korean Workers' Party, and preferential treatment in food distribution. Those with hostile songbun face discrimination in virtually every area of life and are more likely to be sent to prison camps for even minor infractions. North Korea operates an extensive system of prison camps known as kwanlaiso, which are estimated to hold between 80,000 and 200,000 political prisoners at any given time. These camps are largely invisible to the outside world, but have been extensively documented through satellite imagery and testimony from the small number of former prisoners who have escaped to tell their stories. Conditions in the camps include systematic torture, forced labor, starvation, and public executions. One of the most chilling aspects of North Korea's penal system is the practice of 3 generations of punishment, under which not only the accused but their parents, children, and even grandchildren can be imprisoned for a single person's political offense. This collective punishment system is designed to discourage any form of dissent by ensuring that acting against the state will bring suffering to one's entire family, including those not yet born at the time of the offense. The famine that struck North Korea in the 1990s, known officially as the Arduous March, ranks among the most devastating humanitarian catastrophes of modern times. Estimates of the death toll vary widely due to the regime's secrecy, but somewhere between 240,000 and 3.5 million North Koreans perished from starvation or hunger-related illnesses between 1994 and 2000, with deaths peaking in 1997. This represented between 3 and 15% of the country's total population. The famine resulted from a combination of factors including economic mismanagement, the loss of Soviet support following the collapse of the USSR in 1991, poor agricultural policies, and a series of natural disasters including floods and droughts. North Korea's Stalinist agricultural system, which relied heavily on Soviet-supplied fuel, fertilizers, and equipment, proved unable to function without external support. When China also reduced food aid following a diplomatic dispute, the crisis became catastrophic. Before the famine, North Koreans depended entirely on a government-controlled public distribution system for food. When this system collapsed, Particularly in areas outside the capital, ordinary citizens were left to fend for themselves. Many turned to foraging for wild plants, tree bark, and grass to survive. The famine disproportionately affected the elderly, children, and those living in rural areas or with poor songbun status, while the military and Pyongyang elite continued to receive adequate rations. The famine fundamentally changed North Korean society by forcing the emergence of informal markets as people desperately traded goods and services to survive. These jangmadang, or market grounds, have persisted and grown since the famine years, creating a shadow economy that operates alongside the official state system. Women became particularly active in market trading, often earning more than their husbands who were required to continue attending their official workplaces despite receiving little or no pay. Today, food insecurity remains a chronic problem in North Korea. According to United Nations estimates, approximately 2 out of every 5 North Koreans are undernourished, and about 28% of children suffer from stunting due to chronic malnutrition. The mountainous terrain, short growing season, and degraded agricultural land make the country structurally unable to feed itself, even in good years, leaving it dependent on foreign food aid and imports. North Korea possesses the 4th largest military in the world, with more than 1.2 million active duty personnel out of a total population of approximately 25 million. This means roughly 1 in every 20 North Koreans serves in the armed forces. The country also maintains millions of reserve troops and paramilitary forces. This massive military establishment consumes a disproportionate share of the nation's limited resources and reflects the regime's Songun, or military-first, policy. The development of nuclear weapons has been a central priority for North Korea since at least the 1960s. The country conducted its first nuclear test in 2006 and has since conducted 5 additional tests, most recently in September 2017, when it detonated what experts assess could have been a hydrogen bomb with an estimated yield of 140 to 250 kilotons. As of recent estimates, North Korea possesses enough fissile material to build between 45 and 90 nuclear warheads, with approximately 50 likely assembled. In addition to nuclear weapons, North Korea is believed to possess one of the world's largest stockpiles of chemical weapons, estimated at between 2,500 and 5,000 tons, including nerve agents like sarin and VX, blister agents like mustard gas, and choking agents like phosgene. The country is also suspected of maintaining a biological weapons capability, with the Pyongyang Biotechnical Institute reportedly equipped to produce military quantities of anthrax and other biological agents. North Korea has developed an increasingly sophisticated ballistic missile program capable of striking targets throughout Asia and potentially the continental United States. The country has tested intercontinental ballistic missiles with ranges exceeding 10,000 kilometers and is working to develop submarine-launched ballistic missiles and missiles capable of carrying multiple warheads. In September 2022, North Korea passed a law declaring itself a nuclear weapons state and outlining conditions under which it might use nuclear weapons first in a conflict. The architecture of Pyongyang stands as a monument to North Korean ideology and the Kim family's ambitions. The city was almost entirely rebuilt after the Korean War and features a distinctive mix of Stalinist grandeur, brutalist concrete structures, and Neo-Korean designs incorporating traditional elements like the curved jiwa tile roofs found on Korean temples. Wide boulevards, massive public squares, and oversized monuments dominate the urban landscape. The Ryugyong Hotel, sometimes called the Hotel of Doom, is perhaps the most recognizable structure in Pyongyang. This 105-story pyramid-shaped skyscraper was planned to be the world's tallest hotel when construction began in 1987. At 330 meters tall, it would have contained 3,000 rooms and 5 revolving restaurants. However, construction halted in 1992 as North Korea entered economic crisis, and the concrete shell stood windowless for 16 years. Work resumed in 2008, and the exterior was completed in 2011, but the hotel has never opened to guests. The Runggrado 1st of May Stadium in Pyongyang is the largest stadium in the world by capacity, able to hold 150,000 spectators. The massive structure features a scalloped roof design and is used for football matches, athletics events, and the famous mass games performances. These mass games involve tens of thousands of performers in highly choreographed displays of gymnastics, dance, and synchronized card flipping to create massive images and patriotic messages. The Juche Tower stands 170 meters tall on the east bank of the Taedong River in Pyongyang, directly across from Kim Il-sung Square. Built to commemorate Kim Il-sung's 70th birthday in 1982, the tower is constructed from 25,550 granite blocks, one for each day of the leader's life up to that point. At night, a red flame made of fiberglass illuminates the top of the tower. The structure can be ascended by elevator, offering panoramic views of the capital. The Mansudi Grand Monument features two bronze statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il that are among the largest bronze sculptures in the world, standing approximately 20 meters tall. The statues stand before a mosaic depicting Mount Pektu and are flanked by massive red granite flag sculptures representing the Korean Revolution. All visitors, including tourists, are expected to approach the statues, bow respectfully, and leave flowers as a sign of reverence. The monument to the party founding consists of 3 granite fists rising 50 meters into the air, each grasping one of 3 symbolic tools: a hammer representing workers, a sickle representing farmers, and a brush representing intellectuals. This addition of the brush to the traditional communist hammer and sickle reflects the importance placed on scholars and propagandists in North Korean ideology. The monument is surrounded by a large plaza used for mass dances and celebrations. The Pyongyang metro system is one of the deepest in the world, with some stations located more than 100 meters underground. The system was designed to double as a bomb shelter in the event of war, reflecting the constant state of military preparedness that characterizes North Korean society. The stations feature elaborate decorations including marble columns, chandeliers, bronze statues, and massive mosaic murals depicting revolutionary themes and the leadership. Visitors to the Pyongyang metro access the stations via extremely long escalators that can take several minutes to descend. The stations are named for revolutionary concepts rather than geographic locations, with names like Glory, Rehabilitation, Victory, and Comrade. Trains run every few minutes during peak hours, and the system serves as a vital transportation link for the approximately 3 million residents of the capital. The Grand People's Study House serves as North Korea's national library and stands as the imposing centerpiece of Kim Il-sung Square in central Pyongyang. The building features traditional Korean architectural elements, including tiered roofs inspired by ancient palaces and temple structures. The library claims a capacity of 30 million books, though the actual collection is heavily censored to include only materials approved by the state. North Korea's transportation infrastructure presents striking contrasts between the showcase capital and the rest of the country. Pyongyang features wide, immaculately maintained boulevards that are notable for being almost empty of traffic, as private automobile ownership remains restricted to a small elite. Outside the capital, roads are often unpaved and in poor condition, making travel slow and difficult. The country has virtually no paved roads outside of major cities, and potholes are common even on main routes. Travel between cities typically requires special permits, and citizens cannot move freely around their own country without government permission. The lack of fuel means that trucks and buses often sit idle, and many people rely on bicycles or walking for transportation, even for long distances. Air travel within North Korea is limited, and the national carrier, Air Koryo, has been rated as the world's only one-star airline. Kim Jong-il, the second leader of North Korea, was reportedly so afraid of flying that he only traveled by custom-armored trains, even for journeys of thousands of kilometers. His special train included sleeping cars, office space, and conference rooms, and his travels by rail to China and Russia were major diplomatic events. North Korea has captured and retained a United States Navy ship since 1968, the only nation in the world to hold such a vessel. The USS Pueblo was a Banner-class environmental research ship that was seized by North Korean forces on January 23, 1968, in what North Korea claimed were its territorial waters. One American sailor was killed in the capture, and 82 others were held prisoner for 11 months before being released. The ship remains docked in Pyongyang as a tourist attraction and propaganda tool. The country uses a unique computer operating system called Red Star OS, developed by the Korea Computer Center. This Linux-based system is available only in the Korean language and includes built-in surveillance capabilities that track user activity and automatically watermark any files transferred via USB drives. The operating system's visual design has been noted for mimicking Apple's macOS interface, despite Apple products being largely unavailable in the country. Most North Koreans have no access to the global internet. Instead, they can only connect to an internal intranet called Pyongyang, which contains a limited selection of government-approved websites, email services, and educational content. Access to even this restricted network is available to only a small percentage of the population, primarily at workplaces, schools, and government offices rather than in homes. Mobile phones have become increasingly common in North Korea, with an estimated 6.5 to 7 million subscriptions in a country of about 25 million people. However, these phones are heavily restricted and cannot make international calls, send international messages, or access the internet. The phones run modified versions of the Android operating system that include sophisticated surveillance software and block the use of any applications or files not approved by the government. Foreigners visiting North Korea can purchase special SIM cards that allow international calls, but these are completely separate from the domestic network used by North Korean citizens. Attempting to use a foreign phone to communicate with ordinary North Koreans is strictly prohibited. North Koreans caught possessing illegal Chinese mobile phones capable of reaching foreign networks face severe punishment, including years of hard labor or imprisonment in political camps. The regime maintains tight control over all media within the country. Television and radio sets sold in North Korea are pre-tuned to government channels and sealed to prevent citizens from accessing foreign broadcasts. All media content is produced or approved by the Korean Central News Agency and focuses heavily on praising the Kim family while portraying the outside world, particularly the United States, as hostile and threatening. Despite these controls, foreign media, particularly South Korean dramas, films, and music, have increasingly penetrated North Korea through smuggled USB drives, SD cards, and DVDs. These are typically brought across the Chinese border and then distributed through informal networks. The popularity of South Korean entertainment has become so concerning to the regime that in 2020, Kim Jong-un pushed through a law imposing punishments of up to 15 years in labor camps for watching or distributing such content. North Korea conducted a currency redenomination in November 2009 that wiped out the savings of many ordinary citizens. The government suddenly announced that 100 old won would be exchanged for one new one, with strict limits on how much could be exchanged. Citizens who had accumulated savings through market activities found their wealth essentially confiscated, causing widespread hardship and rare public expressions of discontent. The official average salary in North Korea has been estimated at roughly equivalent to $2 to $5 per month, though the actual economic situation is more complex. Most North Koreans supplement their official income through market activities, small-scale trading, and other informal economic activities. The underground economy is estimated to account for a significant portion of household income, particularly for women who are less tied to official employment. North Korea has attempted to develop special economic zones to attract foreign investment while maintaining overall isolation. The Rason Special Economic Zone near the Chinese and Russian borders and the now-closed Kaesong Industrial Complex near the South Korean border were experiments in limited economic opening. The Kaesong Complex, which employed North Korean workers in South Korean-owned factories, was shut down in 2016 following North Korea's fourth nuclear test. The country has historically earned foreign currency through a variety of means, including arms sales to other nations, the export of workers to countries like Russia and China, where their wages are largely confiscated by the state, and illicit activities including counterfeiting, drug production, and cyber attacks. North Korean hackers have been linked to major cyber heists, including the 2014 Sony Pictures hack and the theft of tens of millions of dollars from banks around the world. In 2024, North Korea deployed troops to Russia in support of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, marking a significant expansion of military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow. The two countries signed a defense agreement that year, deepening ties that had grown following Russia's international isolation due to its invasion of Ukraine. North Korean soldiers have reportedly gained combat experience fighting in Russia's Kursk region. North Korea officially abandoned its long-standing goal of peaceful reunification with South Korea in January 2024, when Kim Jong-un declared that reunification was no longer possible and designated South Korea as a principal enemy. This marked a dramatic departure from decades of official rhetoric about eventually reuniting the Korean nation, and suggested a hardening of positions on both sides of the divided peninsula. The country maintains a distinct time zone called Pyongyang time. In 2015, North Korea created this time zone, initially setting clocks 30 minutes behind South Korea and Japan as a statement of independence. However, in 2018, following an inter-Korean summit and improving relations, North Korea changed its time zone back to match the South, a symbolic gesture of cooperation that has since been overshadowed by renewed tensions. Every North Korean citizen is required to wear a lapel badge displaying the image of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, or both. These badges are considered sacred and must be worn over the heart at all times when in public. Different designs exist, and the specific badge a person wears can indicate their position or status within society. Losing or damaging a badge is considered a serious offense that can result in punishment. Portraits of the supreme leaders are mandatory not only in public spaces like train stations, hospitals, schools, and factories, but also in private homes, where they must be displayed prominently in the living room. Special towels are distributed to families for the sole purpose of cleaning these portraits, and regular inspections are conducted to ensure they are properly maintained. In the event of a fire, citizens are reportedly expected to rescue the leaders' portraits before saving their own possessions or family members. Kim Il-sung scammed Sweden out of 1,000 Volvo 144 sedans in 1974, and to date North Korea has never made payment for these vehicles. The cars were ordered during a period when Sweden was among the first Western nations to recognize North Korea, and Pyongyang took advantage of the new diplomatic relationship to obtain the luxury vehicles. The debt has accumulated over decades and now amounts to approximately 3 billion Swedish krona with accumulated interest. The country is home to the Arirang Mass Games, spectacular performances that involve over 100,000 citizen participants in highly choreographed displays of gymnastics, dance, and card flipping. The card section alone consists of tens of thousands of schoolchildren who hold up colored pages in precisely timed sequences to create massive images visible across the stadium. Participants practice for months before performances, which were held annually in Pyongyang until 2014. Hairstyling in North Korea is reportedly subject to government regulation, with a limited number of approved hairstyles from which citizens must choose. Various sources have reported that men can choose from 10 to 15 different styles, while women have 18 to 28 options available. Unusual hairstyles, particularly those associated with Western or South Korean fashion, can result in punishment or forced correction. Kim Jong-un attended boarding school in Switzerland during his teenage years, where classmates remember him as being particularly interested in basketball rather than academics. His love of the sport led to a surprising friendship with former NBA star Dennis Rodman, who has visited North Korea multiple times and is one of the few Americans to have met Kim Jong-un in person. The regime has used Kim's basketball enthusiasm to present him as a modern, relatable leader. North Korea contains thousands of statues, monuments, and murals dedicated to the Kim family and revolutionary themes. The landscape is dotted with bronze statues of the leaders, massive mosaic murals on building facades, and revolutionary monuments at roadsides and public squares. Art propaganda squads travel throughout the country performing poetry readings, one-act plays, and songs to inspire workers and celebrate the regime's achievements. The capital's bus stops are notable for featuring artistic murals and landscapes, rather than the advertising that dominates similar infrastructure in capitalist countries. Buses are the most common form of public transportation in Pyongyang, with tickets costing only 5 won, less than 0. 1 US cents at unofficial exchange rates, making travel essentially free. However, service can be unreliable due to fuel shortages and aging vehicles. Traditional Korean floor heating, called ondol, remains common in North Korean homes, including modern apartment buildings. This ancient system involves heating air with a stove and directing it through passages beneath the floor, providing warmth that rises from the ground. The system is efficient for heating during cold winters, but depends on fuel that has become increasingly scarce in North Korea's struggling economy. Pyongyang is notable for its near absence of commercial advertising. Instead, public spaces are dominated by political propaganda, including slogans, murals, and posters exhorting citizens to greater loyalty and productivity. Common slogans include phrases like "North Korea is a utopia," "We have nothing to envy in the world," and "Long live the great leader." These messages are so pervasive that citizens encounter them in virtually every public space. The country has extremely limited street lighting outside of showcase areas in Pyongyang. Satellite images taken at night show North Korea as a dark void between the brightly lit territories of China and South Korea, with only a small cluster of lights visible around the capital. This lack of electricity affects not only lighting, but also heating, refrigeration, and industrial production throughout the country. Traffic in Pyongyang is directed not primarily by traffic lights, but by uniformed traffic controllers, typically young women who perform their duties with precise, choreographed movements. These traffic girls have become something of a symbol of Pyongyang and are selected for their appearance and performance skills. Their presence at intersections is both functional and theatrical, adding to the stage-like quality of the capital's streets. North Korea has created a fake village called Kijingdong, or Peace Village, in its portion of the demilitarized zone visible from South Korea. South Koreans have nicknamed it Propaganda Village because observations suggest it is largely uninhabited, with buildings that appear to be facades without functional interiors. The village features a massive flagpole, once the tallest in the world at 160 meters, flying a North Korean flag that weighs approximately 270 kilograms when dry. The DMZ has inadvertently become one of the most pristine natural areas in Asia due to over 70 years of human absence. The zone contains diverse ecosystems including forests, estuaries, and wetlands that support rare and endangered species. White-naped cranes, red-crowned cranes, and other migratory birds use the area as habitat, and there have been reports of rare mammals including Asiatic black bears and possibly even Korean tigers in the remote areas. North Korea is believed to have dug at least 4 tunnels underneath the DMZ towards South Korea, designed to allow rapid infiltration of troops in the event of war. 4 such tunnels have been discovered and are now tourist attractions on the South Korean side, but intelligence assessments suggest there may be as many as 20 additional undiscovered tunnels. Some of these passages are large enough to allow the movement of 30,000 soldiers per hour. The Kumsusan Palace of the Sun serves as the mausoleum for Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, whose preserved bodies lie in state in glass sarcophagi. The palace was originally Kim Il-sung's official residence and was converted to a mausoleum after his death in 1994. Visitors must follow strict protocols, including passing through air blowers to remove dust, bowing at precise intervals, and maintaining a somber demeanor. Photography is forbidden inside. Kim Jong-il was reportedly a major film enthusiast who built a personal library of over 20,000 Western movies, with a particular fondness for James Bond films. His passion for cinema went beyond mere viewing. In 1978, he orchestrated the kidnapping of South Korean film director Shin Sang-ok and actress Choi Yoon-hee, holding them in North Korea for 8 years and forcing them to make propaganda films before they managed to escape during a trip to Vienna. The abduction of foreign citizens has been a documented practice of the North Korean regime. Beyond the high-profile South Korean kidnappings, North Korea has admitted to abducting at least 13 Japanese citizens during the 1970s and 1980s, though Japan believes the actual number is higher. These abductees were taken to train North Korean spies in Japanese language and customs. Only 5 have been returned, with North Korea claiming the others died. Kim Jong-nam, the eldest son of Kim Jong-il and half-brother of Kim Jong-un, was assassinated at Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia in February 2017. 2 women smeared VX nerve agent, one of the deadliest chemical weapons ever created, on his face in what appeared to be a carefully planned operation. Kim Jong-nam had fallen out of favor with his father after being caught attempting to visit Tokyo Disneyland with a fake passport in 2001. North Korea has only 3 government-controlled television channels, and all programming consists of state-produced content including news, documentaries praising the leadership, revolutionary operas, and approved films. Foreign television is illegal, though some citizens near border areas can occasionally receive signals from China or South Korea. The punishment for watching foreign broadcasts can include imprisonment in labor camps. The country produces its own animated cartoons designed to indoctrinate children with regime ideology while entertaining them. Series like Boy General and the Squirrel and the Hedgehog contain thinly veiled allegories in which heroic animals representing North Korea battle evil characters representing the United States, Japan, and South Korea. These programs teach children to view foreign powers as enemies from an early age. Musicians and composers in North Korea are assigned to government institutions and create works that praise the leadership and promote regime ideology. Popular songs have titles like Song of General Kim Il-sung, Long Life and Good Health to the Leader, and We Sing of His Benevolent Love. Some apparently catchy pop songs contain lyrics celebrating scenarios like the nuclear destruction of the United States, though listeners who do not understand Korean would never know from the melody alone. Revolutionary operas form an important part of North Korean culture, with works like The Sea of Blood and The Flower Girl being considered masterpieces that every citizen should know. These operas were developed under Kim Jong-il's guidance when he was in charge of propaganda and culture, and they tell stories of Korean resistance against Japanese occupation and the sacrifices made for the revolution. North Korea celebrates numerous national holidays centered on the Kim family, with the 2 most important being Kim Il-sung's birthday on April 15, known as the Day of the Sun, and Kim Jong-il's birthday on February 16, called the Day of the Shining Star. These occasions are marked with elaborate celebrations, including the mass games, military parades, and the distribution of extra food rations to citizens. Military service is mandatory for both men and women in North Korea. Men must serve for approximately 10 years, while women serve until age 23. This extended service period means that military duty consumes a significant portion of young people's lives, and that the armed forces serve as a major socializing institution. Only exceptionally gifted students may be exempt from service to pursue advanced education. The Korean People's Army plays a role in North Korean society that extends far beyond defense. Soldiers are routinely deployed for construction projects, agricultural work, and industrial production. During times of food shortage, military units may be ordered to help with planting and harvesting. The fusion of military and civilian life reflects the Songun policy that places the army at the center of national priorities. North Korea's relationship with China has historically been described as close as lips and teeth, with China serving as the country's primary ally, trading partner, and source of food and fuel. However, tensions have occasionally strained the relationship, particularly over North Korea's nuclear program, which China officially opposes. China has supported United Nations sanctions against North Korea while also working to prevent the regime's collapse. Russia's relationship with North Korea has strengthened significantly in recent years, particularly following Russia's invasion of Ukraine and subsequent international isolation. The 2 countries signed a mutual defense agreement in 2024, and North Korea has supplied ammunition and weapons to Russia. In exchange, North Korea has reportedly received economic assistance and military technology, including expertise that may help advance its weapons programs. The Kaesong Industrial Complex represented a unique experiment in inter-Korean cooperation, with South Korean companies operating factories staffed by North Korean workers in a special zone just north of the DMZ. At its peak, over 50,000 North Korean workers were employed in the complex, earning wages that, while modest by South Korean standards, were significant in the North Korean context. The complex was shut down in 2016 and has not reopened. Family reunions between relatives separated by the division of Korea are rare and highly emotional events. Millions of families were split when the peninsula was divided, and most have had no contact whatsoever in the decades since. Occasional reunion events have been held at Mount Pyongyang, allowing elderly Koreans from north and south to meet briefly, often for the last time. The demand for places in these reunions far exceeds the limited spots available. Mount Pyongyang was briefly opened to South Korean tourists in the late 1990s and 2000s as part of improved inter-Korean relations. A resort complex was built, and hundreds of thousands of South Koreans visited the scenic mountain region. However, the tourism program was suspended in 2008 after a North Korean soldier shot and killed a South Korean tourist who wandered into a restricted military area. The resort has remained closed since. North Korea has participated in the Olympic Games since 1964, though it has occasionally boycotted the event for political reasons. North Korean athletes have won medals primarily in weightlifting, wrestling, and gymnastics. In a remarkable moment of inter-Korean cooperation, athletes from North and South Korea marched together under a unified flag at the opening ceremonies of the 2000, 2004, and 2018 Olympic Games, though they competed as separate teams. The Pyongyang ice rink is one of several recreational facilities that have been developed under Kim Jong-un as part of efforts to present a more modern image of North Korea. The rink features unusual architectural elements, including a rocket-shaped diving tower with a glass elevator that transports users to different levels. Other facilities include a water park, ski resort, and roller skating rinks that cater primarily to Pyongyang's elite residents. Defection from North Korea is extremely dangerous and becoming increasingly difficult. The majority of defectors cross the border into China, where they face the risk of being caught and forcibly repatriated by Chinese authorities, who consider them illegal economic migrants rather than refugees. Those who are returned to North Korea face severe punishment, including imprisonment, torture, and potentially execution. More than 33,000 North Koreans have successfully defected to South Korea since the division of the peninsula, with the numbers peaking during and after the famine years of the 1990s. Defectors who reach South Korea receive citizenship, financial support, and assistance with resettlement. However, many struggle to adapt to life in a capitalist society and face discrimination. Studies have found that North Korean defectors are on average 5 inches shorter than their South Korean counterparts due to childhood malnutrition. The journey to freedom for North Korean defectors typically involves crossing into China, traveling through the country while evading authorities, and then making their way to a third country, often Thailand or Mongolia, from which they can safely travel to South Korea. The journey can take months or years and often involves paying brokers who help navigate the dangerous route. Women are particularly vulnerable to trafficking and exploitation during this journey. Information from the outside world is slowly reaching North Korean citizens despite the regime's efforts at control. USB drives loaded with South Korean dramas, films, and information are smuggled across the border and circulated through informal networks. Some organizations launch balloons carrying USB drives, SD cards, and leaflets into North Korea, though this practice has become controversial and was briefly banned by South Korea before the ban was struck down by courts. The concept of human rights as understood internationally is largely absent from North Korean society. The state controls all aspects of citizens' lives, and the regime explicitly rejects Western concepts of individual rights in favor of collective loyalty to the nation and its leaders. United Nations investigations have documented systematic human rights abuses, including extrajudicial execution, torture, forced labor, arbitrary detention, and denial of freedoms of expression, assembly, and religion. A United Nations Commission of Inquiry report published in 2014 concluded that North Korea was responsible for systematic, widespread, and gross human rights violations that in many instances constitute crimes against humanity. The report documented evidence of murder, enslavement, torture, imprisonment, rape, forced abortions, and persecution on political, religious, racial, and gender grounds. The Commission recommended that the situation be referred to the International Criminal Court. Religious practice in North Korea is heavily suppressed despite constitutional provisions nominally guaranteeing freedom of religion. Before the Korean War, Pyongyang was known as the Jerusalem of the East due to its large Christian population. Today, practicing Christianity or any religion outside of state-approved channels is severely punished. The few churches that exist in Pyongyang are widely believed to be propaganda showcases rather than genuine places of worship. The personality cult surrounding the Kim family has been described as a form of political religion, with the leaders portrayed as godlike figures deserving of worship. Kim Il-sung is officially titled the Eternal President, a designation that was constitutionally enshrined after his death to honor his memory forever. The country's official ideology describes the Kim family as possessing special revolutionary bloodlines tracing to Mount Pektu. Portraits and statues of the Kims are treated with religious reverence. Citizens must bow before statues, and speaking negatively about the leaders, even in private, can result in severe punishment if reported by family members, neighbors, or coworkers. The system encourages mutual surveillance, with citizens expected to report any signs of disloyalty they observe in others. North Korea's economy is a command system in which the state controls all means of production, and the government sets all economic priorities. Private enterprise is officially illegal, though the informal market economy that grew during the famine years continues to operate in a gray zone that the state tolerates to varying degrees. Economic management has been characterized by inefficiency, corruption, and the prioritization of military spending over civilian needs. The country is rich in mineral resources including coal, iron ore, magnesite, graphite, copper, zinc, lead, and precious metals. Before the division of the peninsula, the northern region was more industrialized than the agricultural south due to Japanese colonial development of mining and heavy industry. However, decades of economic mismanagement, lack of investment, and international sanctions have left much of this industrial capacity obsolete or inoperative. International sanctions imposed in response to North Korea's nuclear and missile programs have severely limited the country's ability to trade and access international financial systems. These sanctions restrict the import of luxury goods, limit coal and other exports, freeze assets, and impose travel bans on officials. While intended to pressure the regime to abandon its weapons programs, critics argue that sanctions have primarily harmed ordinary citizens while doing little to change regime behavior. North Korea's healthcare system, like many aspects of the country, presents a stark contrast between official claims and reality. The government officially provides free universal health care, but in practice, medical facilities outside of Pyongyang often lack basic supplies, medicines, and functioning equipment. Patients are frequently expected to provide their own food while hospitalized, and doctors may expect informal payments for treatment. Traditional Korean medicine continues to be practiced alongside Western medicine in North Korea. The country has promoted the use of herbal remedies and traditional treatments, in part due to shortages of modern pharmaceuticals. Kim Jong-il reportedly received treatment from traditional medicine practitioners in addition to conventional doctors during his final years. Life expectancy in North Korea is significantly lower than in South Korea, reflecting differences in nutrition, healthcare, and overall living standards. While South Koreans have an average life expectancy of over 80 years, North Koreans live on average about 72 years. The gap between the two Koreas in health outcomes has widened over time as South Korea has continued to develop while the North has stagnated. The environmental situation in North Korea has deteriorated significantly due to decades of mismanagement, deforestation, and pollution. Hillsides that were stripped of trees for firewood and agricultural expansion have become prone to erosion and landslides. Air and water pollution from industrial facilities and the burning of low-quality coal affects public health. Climate change poses additional challenges, with the country experiencing more frequent extreme weather events. Flooding and drought cycles have become more severe, threatening agricultural production and exacerbating food security concerns. The country's vulnerability to natural disasters is amplified by poor infrastructure, degraded land, and limited resources for emergency response. International aid organizations have provided assistance following major floods, but access for foreign aid workers is heavily restricted by the regime. As we draw near the end of this journey through the mysteries of North Korea, let the gentle rhythm of these facts carry you toward restful sleep. The world contains countless stories, some more strange and sobering than others, and the isolated nation we have explored tonight holds many secrets still hidden from outside view. In this land of contrasts, where ancient mountains meet socialist monuments, where technological isolation coexists with nuclear ambitions, and where millions live under the watchful eye of an all-controlling state, ordinary people go about their daily lives much as people do everywhere, working, caring for families, and hoping for better futures. The Korean Peninsula, divided for over 7 decades, remains one of the most fascinating and troubling geopolitical situations in the world today. Whether North and South will ever reunify, whether the Kim regime will endure, and whether the North Korean people will one day enjoy the freedoms and opportunities their southern cousins possess, are questions that may be answered in the years and decades to come. For now, let these facts settle into your mind like leaves floating on still water. The mountains of North Korea stand eternal beneath the stars, the rivers flow toward the sea, and somewhere in Pyongyang, the lights of the Juche Tower glow red against the night sky. May your dreams be peaceful, and may tomorrow bring rest and renewal. As you continue to drift, let us explore more of this enigmatic nation. The Korean Workers' Party is the ruling political party of North Korea and exercises complete control over all aspects of government and society. Founded in 1946, the party has been led by 3 generations of the Kim family. Membership in the party is considered essential for anyone seeking advancement in North Korean society, though admission is selective and requires demonstrated loyalty and good songbun. The party's symbol consists of a hammer, sickle, and writing brush, representing the unity of workers, farmers, and intellectuals. This addition of the brush to the standard communist symbolism reflects the importance placed on education, propaganda, and ideological work in North Korean society. Party membership is estimated at approximately 3 million people, representing about 12% of the population. The Supreme People's Assembly is North Korea's unicameral parliament and is nominally the highest organ of state power. The Assembly has 687 seats, and members are elected to 5-year terms in elections where candidates run unopposed and voter turnout approaches 100%, as voting is mandatory. In practice, the Assembly meets only briefly each year to unanimously approve decisions already made by the party leadership. The Cabinet of North Korea serves as the executive and administrative organ of state and is led by the premier, currently a position held by an official who ranks 3rd in the overall government hierarchy. The cabinet includes 30 ministers overseeing various aspects of government from agriculture to foreign affairs, though all major decisions are made by Kim Jong-un and his closest advisors in the State Affairs Commission. The Korean Central News Agency, known as KCNA, is the state news agency of North Korea and serves as the sole source of official news both domestically and internationally. KCNA releases are carefully crafted propaganda that glorifies the leadership and presents a heavily filtered view of both domestic and world events. International media analysts study KCNA reports carefully for hints about internal politics and policy directions. Radong Sinmun is the official newspaper of the Korean Workers' Party and the most important publication in the country. The paper's name translates to labor news, and it serves as the primary vehicle for communicating party positions to the population. Articles praising the leadership and exhorting citizens to greater productivity fill its pages. Interestingly, The paper became briefly available to South Korean readers in recent years through official channels. The Tower of the Juche idea includes not just the main tower, but also surrounding elements including large bronze statues and a grand plaza. The structure was designed to be exactly 1 meter taller than the Washington Monument, reflecting the competitive relationship between North Korea and the United States. At night, the flame atop the tower illuminates the Pyongyang skyline as a symbol of the guiding ideology. The Arch of Triumph in Pyongyang was constructed to commemorate Korean resistance to Japanese occupation and is modeled after the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, but built to be slightly larger at 60 meters in height. The arch was completed in 1982, the same year as the Juche Tower, to mark Kim Il-sung's 70th birthday. It is inscribed with patriotic songs, including Song of General Kim Il-sung. The Korean Revolution Museum houses exhibits documenting the history of the North Korean Revolution and the achievements of the Kim family. The massive building sits at the base of Mansu Hill, beneath the giant bronze statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. Visitors follow a prescribed route through rooms filled with artifacts, documents, photographs, and dioramas that present the official version of North Korean history. The Victorious Fatherland Liberation War Museum commemorates North Korea's perspective on the Korean War, which it calls the Fatherland Liberation War, and portrays as a defensive action against American aggression. The museum displays captured American military equipment including tanks, aircraft, and the USS Pueblo. Inside, elaborate dioramas and paintings depict battle scenes, glorifying North Korean forces and demonizing American soldiers. The Pyongyang Maternity Hospital is presented as a showcase of the state's care for mothers and children, though like many prestigious facilities in Pyongyang, it serves primarily elite citizens and is not representative of healthcare available to ordinary North Koreans. The hospital has been visited by foreign dignitaries and features modern equipment, at least in the sections shown to outsiders. The Korean Film Studio, sometimes called the Hollywood of North Korea, produces all of the country's films under strict government supervision. Kim Jong-il personally oversaw film production for decades and even authored a book called On the Art of the Cinema, outlining his theories of socialist filmmaking. North Korean films tend to follow predictable formulas involving heroic workers, soldiers, or revolutionaries overcoming obstacles through devotion to the state. The Mansudi Art Studio is the state-run art production facility responsible for creating the massive statues, murals, and monuments that dominate North Korean public spaces. The studio employs thousands of artists and has exported its monumental sculpture to countries around the world, including the African Renaissance Monument in Senegal and various statues in African nations, generating foreign currency for the regime. North Korean cuisine shares many elements with South Korean cooking, but has developed distinctive characteristics due to decades of separation and the country's economic constraints. The northern region traditionally relied more on grains like corn and buckwheat than the rice-dominated cuisine of the south. Cold noodles from Pyongyang, called naengmyeon, are considered a specialty, though food shortages have made traditional dishes less accessible to ordinary citizens. Kimchi, the fermented vegetable dish that is a staple of Korean cuisine, remains important in North Korean food culture. Families prepare large quantities each autumn in a tradition called kimjang. However, ingredients for making kimchi and other traditional foods have become scarce for many families, and the quality and quantity of food available to ordinary citizens varies greatly depending on their location and songbun status. Dog meat is consumed in North Korea and is not considered taboo as it is in many Western countries. Dishes made from dog meat are sometimes offered to tourists as a traditional Korean delicacy. The consumption of dogs for food is a long-standing practice in Korean culture, though it has become controversial internationally and is declining in South Korea. The Koryo medicine system represents North Korea's approach to traditional Korean healing practices. The country has promoted traditional medicine partly due to shortages of Western pharmaceuticals and partly as an assertion of national cultural identity. The Koryo medicine facility in Pyongyang treats patients using herbal remedies, acupuncture, and other traditional techniques that have been practiced in Korea for centuries. North Korea has achieved some notable accomplishments in sports despite its international isolation. The country's women's soccer team has been competitive in international competitions, and North Korean athletes have won Olympic medals in weightlifting, wrestling, gymnastics, and other sports. Sports facilities in Pyongyang have been developed to train elite athletes and present an image of national vitality. The Masakryong ski resort was developed under Kim Jong-un and opened in 2014 as part of efforts to modernize North Korea's image and provide recreation for the elite. The resort features slopes, chairlifts, and a hotel, though it has faced criticism as a prestige project in a country where many citizens struggle to meet basic needs. International observers have noted that equipment at the resort includes items that should be blocked by sanctions. The Munsu Water Park in Pyongyang is another recreational facility developed under Kim Jong-un that features indoor and outdoor pools, water slides, and other attractions. Like the ski resort, it primarily serves Pyongyang's elite residents and presents a modern face of North Korea to foreign visitors. These developments contrast sharply with conditions in the countryside where such amenities are unimaginable. Dolphins and sea lions perform at the Pyongyang Central Zoo, which also houses a variety of other animals in facilities of varying quality. The zoo serves as a recreation destination for Pyongyang residents and showcases animals from around the world alongside native Korean species. Kim Jong-un has taken a personal interest in developing entertainment facilities in the capital. The Yanggakdo International Hotel is where most foreign tourists in North Korea are housed during visits to Pyongyang. The 47-story hotel sits on an island in the Taedong River, making it easy for authorities to monitor and restrict the movements of foreign visitors. Guests are generally not permitted to leave the hotel grounds without their official guides. The hotel features a revolving restaurant on its top floor. Tourism to North Korea exists, but is heavily controlled and limited. Visitors must book through approved tour operators and are accompanied by government-appointed guides at all times. Photography is restricted, and tourists are shown a carefully curated selection of sites designed to present the country favorably. Certain nationalities, including Americans during some periods, have faced additional restrictions or outright bans on visiting. The Kisan Fun Fair in Pyongyang features amusement rides including a roller coaster and other attractions. The park provides recreation for Pyongyang residents and creates photo opportunities of North Koreans enjoying leisure activities. Like other entertainment venues in the capital, it presents an image of normalcy and prosperity that does not reflect conditions throughout the country. The Pyongyang Zoo and Botanical Garden Complex provides green space in the capital city and showcases both exotic and native species. The grounds include pavilions and monuments alongside the animal exhibits. Visitors can observe North Korean families enjoying outings to the zoo, one of the few leisure activities available to residents of the capital. Mobile phone ownership in North Korea has grown significantly since the introduction of the Korealink network in 2008. Estimates suggest there are now between 6 and 7 million mobile phone subscriptions in the country. However, these phones operate on a closed network that does not allow international calls or internet access, and the devices contain surveillance software that monitors usage and restricts content. The Red Star operating system, used on computers in North Korea, includes features designed to prevent the viewing of unauthorized content. The system automatically watermarks any files copied to USB drives, allowing authorities to trace the spread of forbidden materials. Modifications to the system or attempts to disable its monitoring functions can be detected and may result in severe punishment. Bureau 27 of the State Security Department is responsible for monitoring communications within North Korea using sophisticated equipment to detect unauthorized mobile phone usage and radio signals. Agents patrol with portable detection, devices that can identify when illegal Chinese phones are being used to make calls to the outside world. Those caught face harsh penalties. The concept of juche has evolved over the decades since Kim Il-sung first articulated it. Originally presented as a Korean adaptation of Marxism-Leninism, Juche has increasingly become a distinctly North Korean ideology focused on national independence, self-reliance, and the unique role of the leader. Some scholars describe it as closer to ultranationalism than traditional communism. The Songbun system's origins trace back to the earliest years of Kim Il-sung's rule, when the regime sought to identify and neutralize potential internal threats. Extensive background investigations classified the entire population based on family history, with particular attention to activities during the Japanese colonial period and the Korean War. This classification has been passed down through generations. The so-called hostile class under the Songbun system includes descendants of landlords, capitalists, religious practitioners, former South Korean residents, and anyone whose family members collaborated with Japanese occupation or opposed the communist revolution. Even decades-old family associations can condemn current generations to limited opportunities and constant suspicion. Education for North Korean children extends beyond classroom instruction to include regular ideological sessions, self-criticism meetings, and participation in political activities. Students are expected to report on themselves and their classmates, identifying any thoughts or behaviors that deviate from regime expectations. This mutual surveillance begins in childhood and continues throughout life. The concept of collective responsibility means that North Koreans must consider not only their own actions, but also how those actions might affect their families. This creates powerful social pressure against any form of dissent, as speaking out or attempting to defect could result in punishment extending to parents, children, siblings, and even grandparents or grandchildren. The arduous March period of the 1990s famine fundamentally disrupted the social contract between the North Korean state and its people. Before the famine, the government provided jobs, housing, food rations, and other necessities in exchange for labor and loyalty. The collapse of the public distribution system forced citizens to fend for themselves, inadvertently creating space for markets and individual initiative. The Jangmadang generation refers to North Koreans who came of age during and after the famine, growing up with exposure to market activities and foreign media rather than pure state ideology. Researchers suggest this generation may be more individualistic and less devoted to the regime than older generations, though expressing such sentiments remains extremely dangerous. Women in North Korea occupy a complex position in society. Official ideology promotes gender equality, and women participate widely in the workforce. However, traditional patriarchal attitudes persist, and women bear primary responsibility for household duties in addition to work obligations. The famine period saw women become more economically active through market trading, sometimes becoming primary earners for their families. Marriage in North Korea requires approval from work units and local authorities, and the Songbun system influences who may marry whom. Dating, as understood in other countries, is limited, and relationships are expected to follow prescribed patterns leading to state-sanctioned marriage. Divorce is possible but stigmatized, and family planning is influenced by state population policies. Children in North Korea are considered the future of the revolution and are subject to intensive political education from birth. Nurseries and kindergartens incorporate ideological content into care programs, and children learn songs praising the Kim family before they can read. The goal is to create citizens who accept the regime's authority as natural and unquestionable. The Korean demilitarized zone wildlife has adapted to the absence of human activity, with the buffer zone becoming home to species that have been pushed out of other parts of the Korean peninsula. Conservation efforts have focused on preserving this inadvertent sanctuary, with scientists from both North and South Korea occasionally cooperating on wildlife surveys despite broader political tensions. Mount Pyongyang remains a powerful symbol in Korean culture and appears frequently in traditional art and literature from both North and South. The mountain's dramatic peaks, waterfalls, and ancient temples have inspired Korean artists for centuries. Before the division of the peninsula, it was a popular destination for travelers from throughout Korea. The Taedong River that flows through Pyongyang provides both practical and symbolic significance to the capital. Bridges spanning the river, the islands within it, and the waterfront promenades contribute to the city's landscape. The river also serves practical functions for transportation and water supply, though pollution and infrastructure challenges affect its condition. The Padang River is another waterway flowing through Pyongyang, and various monuments and facilities line its banks. The river areas provide some of the green space available to Pyongyang residents and host activities, including fishing and boating. Development along the rivers reflects the regime's efforts to beautify the capital. Spring in North Korea brings the annual celebration of Kim Il-sung's birthday on April 15, marking the beginning of a period of elaborate festivities. Preparations begin weeks in advance, with citizens mobilized to clean public spaces and rehearse for ceremonies. The date is considered the most important holiday in the North Korean calendar. The fall harvest season is critical in North Korea due to the country's precarious food situation. Agricultural production determines whether the population will have adequate food supplies for the coming year, and poor harvests can trigger food shortages that affect millions. The regime mobilizes students and workers to assist with harvesting during this crucial period. Winter in North Korea brings particular hardships due to heating fuel shortages and the harsh climate, especially in mountainous regions. Temperatures in northern areas can drop to -20 degrees Celsius or lower, and many homes lack adequate heating. The combination of cold and food scarcity makes winter the most difficult season for ordinary North Koreans. The Rajan-Sanbong Special Economic Zone, near the Chinese and Russian borders, represents one of North Korea's experiments with limited economic opening. The zone allows some foreign investment and trade under controlled conditions, though its development has been hindered by sanctions and the regime's reluctance to genuinely embrace market reforms. Chinese trade accounts for the overwhelming majority of North Korea's limited international commerce. China supplies food, fuel, and consumer goods, while North Korea exports minerals, seafood, and textiles. The trade relationship provides economic lifeline for the regime, but also creates dependency that gives China significant leverage over its neighbor. Russian-North Korean relations have deepened significantly in recent years, with both countries finding common cause in opposition to Western-led international order. Economic cooperation, military ties, and diplomatic support have all expanded. North Korea has supplied weapons to Russia for use in Ukraine, receiving economic assistance and technology in return. The concept of Songun, or military first, was formally adopted as state policy in the 1990s under Kim Jong-il. This ideology places the military at the center of national life, prioritizing military needs over civilian concerns and presenting the army as the leading force in building socialism. The policy has been used to justify continued military spending despite widespread poverty. The Korean People's Army includes ground forces, Navy, Air Force, and strategic rocket forces. Ground forces are the largest component, with over 1 million active soldiers. The military maintains enormous quantities of artillery along the DMZ, with the ability to strike Seoul and other South Korean cities within minutes of any conflict beginning. The Special Operations Forces of North Korea are among the largest in the world, with estimates suggesting over 180,000 personnel trained in unconventional warfare, infiltration, and sabotage. These forces would likely play a significant role in any future conflict, with the ability to operate behind enemy lines and target critical infrastructure. The Korean People's Navy is relatively small compared to other elements of the military, but operates submarines, patrol vessels, and other craft in waters around the peninsula. North Korean submarines have been involved in several incidents over the decades, including the sinking of a South Korean naval vessel in 2010 that killed 46 sailors. The Korean People's Air Force operates primarily older Soviet-era aircraft, though North Korea has made efforts to develop and acquire more modern capabilities. Fuel shortages limit pilot training hours, potentially affecting combat readiness. The regime has prioritized air defense systems to protect against attacks on leadership facilities and nuclear sites. Cyber warfare has become an increasingly important element of North Korea's military and intelligence capabilities. North Korean hackers have been linked to attacks on financial institutions, entertainment companies, and government agencies around the world. The country's cyber forces reportedly operate from locations in both North Korea and China, generating revenue and gathering intelligence. The Pyongyang nuclear test site in the northeastern mountains is where North Korea conducted its 6 nuclear tests between 2006 and 2017. Satellite imagery has shown extensive tunnel construction at the site, and seismic monitoring stations around the world detected each test. In 2018, North Korea invited foreign journalists to witness the demolition of tunnel entrances, though experts debate whether the site remains usable. The Yongbyon nuclear facility is the center of North Korea's nuclear program and has been in operation since the 1960s. The site includes a 5-megawatt reactor capable of producing plutonium for weapons, as well as a uranium enrichment facility that provides an alternative path to nuclear weapons. Satellite monitoring of activity at Yongbyon provides clues about the pace of North Korea's weapons production. International negotiations over North Korea's nuclear program have followed a tortured path over the past 3 decades. Agreements reached in 1994, 2007, and through various other diplomatic initiatives have all eventually collapsed. North Korea has demonstrated willingness to negotiate while continuing to advance its weapons programs, leading many analysts to conclude that the regime views nuclear weapons as essential for its survival. Kim Jong-un met with then U.S. President Donald Trump at summits in Singapore in 2018 and Hanoi in 2019, marking the first meetings between sitting leaders of the two countries. While the summits generated considerable media attention and brief diplomatic momentum, they produced no lasting agreements, and negotiations have remained stalled since the Hanoi summit ended without a deal. The inter-Korean relationship has fluctuated dramatically over the decades between periods of tension and limited cooperation. The Sunshine Policy, pursued by South Korea in the late 1990s and 2000s, emphasized engagement and economic cooperation, leading to the development of the Kaesong Industrial Complex and Mount Kumgang tourism. More recent South Korean governments have taken harder lines. The Panmunjom Declaration, signed by the leaders of North and South Korea in April 2018, pledged to work toward peace and denuclearization, raising hopes for improved relations. However, progress stalled, and by 2024, North Korea had officially abandoned any goal of reunification, declaring South Korea a hostile state. The brief thaw gave way to renewed tensions. As our journey through North Korea draws toward its close, consider the millions of ordinary people who live their lives within this isolated nation. They work, raise families, celebrate holidays, mourn losses, and dream of better futures, much as people do everywhere. Most have known no other system and have no basis for comparison with the outside world. The future of North Korea remains deeply uncertain. The regime has demonstrated remarkable resilience, surviving the collapse of its Soviet patron, devastating famine, international sanctions, and persistent internal contradictions. Yet pressures both internal and external continue to challenge the system that the Kim family has built over 3 generations. Information from the outside world continues to seep into North Korea despite the regime's efforts at control. Each USB drive of South Korean dramas, each smuggled radio broadcast, each conversation with relatives who have escaped, chips away at the isolation that sustains the system. The long-term effects of this information infiltration remain to be seen. The division of the Korean peninsula represents one of the last legacies of the Cold War, a wound that has not healed in more than 7 decades. Families remain separated, a nation remains split, and the prospects for peaceful reunification seem more distant than ever. Yet the Korean people, North and South, share a common heritage, language, and culture that endures despite political division. The mountains of North Korea will continue to stand long after the current regime has passed into history, whatever form that passing may take. The rivers will flow to the sea, the seasons will turn, and the Korean people will continue to adapt and survive as they have for thousands of years. As you drift toward sleep, let these thoughts settle gently. The world is vast and contains multitudes, including places as strange and sorrowful as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Understanding such places, even from a distance, helps us appreciate both the diversity of human experience and the universal yearnings for security, dignity, and freedom that all people share. May your sleep be peaceful and your dreams carry you to places of comfort and rest. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities for learning, growth, and connection with the world around you. For now, let the weight of the day fall away and allow yourself to drift into the restorative embrace of slumber. The night is quiet now. The facts have been shared, the stories told. What remains is simply rest, the natural rhythm of sleep that renews the body and mind. Breathe slowly, relax deeply, and let consciousness gently fade into the healing darkness of a good night's sleep. Sleep well and good night.